For anybody that is afraid of failure and rejection, I've got a story for you today. And it's a story about a recent failure that also is kind of a success, and it happened last week. I gave a talk about my most recent book at a library, and my most recent book is an autobiographical story about vulnerability and empathy. And the talk is something that I had scheduled probably 2 months ago, and putting it together was really seamless. The librarian who worked at this library was extremely open and kind and gracious. And yeah, I was really excited about it. It took place in a city that was probably like a 3 hour trip from where I live each way. So it was it was a bunch of energy to get there, and I had really no idea what kind of turnout there would be there. I'd given a couple talks in this city about a decade ago around my first book. And at that time, I remember the events were pretty well attended and they went really well. But I walked away from my author career for many years. And so at this point in time, I had no idea what to expect. All I knew is that this is what I have to be doing in order to get my work out there to new people. I have to go places. I have to do the vulnerable, scary thing of just putting myself out there, putting on events and not knowing how it's going to go and being okay with however it goes. And so the day of the event, I was on my way, fully aware that it's possible not many people are going to show up to this. I had done on my side of promoting the event, I had written a press release to the local newspaper. I'd created event pages online and reached out to local community groups, and the library promoted it. But I had no clear indication of people that were going. So as I went, I kind of like, there was a voice that kind of wanted to erupt inside of me and start worrying. And I felt it and I was like, Miles, there's nothing to worry about here. This is a beautiful sunny day. You're healthy. You're happy. Life is amazing. You're going to go do this event and see how it goes. You don't control what happens on the other side of it. You only control that you show up and how you show up. So I just kind of like really tried to get grounded and present leading up to the event so that when I showed up, I could be more present to the people who were there than up in my head and self-absorbed in my own insecurity. Because it's not, when I'm putting on an event, it's better to be present to the people around me than absorbed in my own anxious worrying. So when I got to the library, I was in a pretty good place. I met the librarian, Blake, who'd helped me set it up. Super nice guy. And it was about 15 minutes before showtime. So I went to our area that was all set up with seating and, started setting up my little book display. And the two of us just got into a conversation really smoothly. He's a writer, so he started sharing about his process writing, and then 6 o'clock rolls around and nobody shows up. And I was in a place where I was taking this all very lightly and just like joking about it and telling Blake, like, man, this is the path for me as an author right now. I just have to show up with no expectations. And if no one comes tonight, I don't have the luxury of feeling bad about that. Um, this is like a discipline and a devotion and a marathon that I have to just like walk one step at a time and collect experiences and learn from them. But I can't let one perceived failure get me down, because I have to keep on creating and giving and creating and giving, and some of it hits, some of it misses. Anyhow, 6 o'clock, the start time rolls around, nobody shows up. And again, I've kind of emotionally prepared for this. Not that I was excited that nobody showed up, but I just wasn't triggered by it. It didn't get me feeling like filled with shame and embarrassment like it might have in the past. I was just like, here it is. This is life unfolding. This is the movie in front of me in real time. And then, about 15 minutes past start time, Blake and I had been talking this whole time. And then a woman shows up. And immediately when I saw her, the first thought was, oh, this is almost worse than no one showing up, because one person being here means one person is witness to the embarrassment of this turnout. It's like now somebody sees that nobody showed up except for her, and the failure, the perceived failure of this event is being exposed. My vulnerability is being exposed. But that just like popped up for a split second, and it didn't really dominate my thoughts, because almost as soon as I had that thought, I noticed this giant grin on this woman's face, and that she looked incredibly happy to be there. And she introduced herself, and it quickly became apparent that she had already read the book. In fact, she listened to the audiobook version of it, and she had connected very deeply with it, so much so that she traveled from another city to come to the event. And it didn't even seem like she noticed or cared that every other seat was empty. She was just excited. She'd connected from her heart to this really honest personal story that I'd written. And I think she was just excited to meet the guy who she'd, been let into his story. And we just sat down and just had a one-on-one conversation for like an hour. And she got to ask questions that the book had brought up for her, and she got to talk a little bit about the present moment of her life and where she finds herself. And I got to ask her questions about like, what did you connect with in the book? And I got to be very honest about the situation we were in that evening, which for me was that I had set up this event and only one person showed up. And that is kind of what I want to share today with you, is in the moment and still right now, that was like the realization of a fear, basically. Because when I'm setting up an event, one of the fears would be that nobody comes, or that people come and they don't like it. But the bigger fear, for some reason, is just that nobody cares and nobody comes. And this was basically kind of almost the realization of that. Only one person came. I've never experienced that before. And instead of feeling discouraged or triggered by that, I actually felt like amazing, because, well, for two reasons. One, a person actually did show up, and it wasn't just anybody, it was somebody who actually had experienced the book and really felt moved by it, and also was like a very intelligent, articulate, awesome person. And we got to like sit down and like talk about that, and that was a really beautiful interaction. So that one person that showed up was this sacred thing. And I also got to connect with Blake, the librarian who put on the event. We had a great conversation before and afterwards, and I gave him a copy of the book, and that was another like heartfelt, beautiful interaction. So there was that actual reality of the event that was like, it was gorgeous. And then another part of it was that this was a fear that was realized, and I'm sitting there living in the moment of the fear being realized, and I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't scary. This isn't even bad. This is awesome. It's like it showed me where I'm at with my commitment to something, that I don't need an enormous external validation. In fact, there's a commitment that's unconditional. There's a commitment to a vision of life, a vision of creating and sharing that is stronger than that, and it's patient, and it's willing to walk the path. And there's something incredibly vitalizing about that. I felt like like a person might feel after an ice bath or a good workout. It's like experiencing that challenge feels like, ooh, it wakes you up. And so I felt, yeah, kind of high and revitalized and like, oh my God, this is awesome. This whole path is so awesome. Because coming here and having one person show up is beautiful. It makes me have to be committed to this path without tons of external validation. It's incredibly humbling, and it builds character in me. It feels like it's this nutrient or something emotionally to be committed to something and to have the path be humbling for it there to sometimes, sometimes I create videos or podcasts or whatever it is, and I send it out and I don't know that anyone ever connects with it. That's just the nature of the game. And sometimes nobody does connect with it. And it might be like a really powerful thing that I've created, but it because of whatever, an algorithm or the way that I titled it isn't compelling, or for whatever reason, it doesn't actually, I don't get validation or feedback from the outside. But to be committed to a path and to just keep on doing it and to not accept that as failure, but to accept it as process, it feels amazing. It feels really, really good. And like I said, that's something that is, it applies to various aspects of my life right now, whether it be relationships, whether it be finances, whether it be, it's just this faith, commitment, um, patience, being able to listen to myself and just walk a path that might not result in getting the things right now. It might not result in the success right now, but it's like building a foundation and it's cultivating my own character and turning me into a person. Like it's like creating something within me that feels like an extraordinary blessing. And there are like practical lessons I can take from that experience of having one person show up. I can, you know, be more selective about the communities I set up events in or how I promote them. There's a list of kind of practical takeaways, which are amazing. But on that one, like emotional or spiritual level, the biggest takeaway for me was, oh, I experienced the thing I'm afraid of. I experienced the vulnerable, embarrassing thing. Somehow I feel kind of liberated. It is actually, I feel better for it. So I just wanted to share that. It was a cool experience. And now you know that if I'm putting on an event in your area, you might be the only person that comes. So come on out and we might have a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, you can let me know in the comments. If you have your own thoughts and experiences, you can also share those in the comments. I'd love to hear. And you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can turn on the notifications. And if you're interested in checking out my book, there's info about it in the show notes in the description. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And until next time, enjoy the days.